the body keeps score. So it's telling you something about your lifestyle needs to change. Something, maybe it's about the food you're eating, maybe it's about your activity level, maybe it's about your thoughts. Whatever it is, why don't you change them all? And there's no better time than now. But that fear, that stress, people don't understand that fear will suppress the immune system.
In essence, what you're doing is a whole body tissue biopsy off of a simple blood draw. And what a lot of these tests are trying to do is take a blood sample and rely on those little bits and scraps of DNA, sometimes called ctDNA or sometimes called cfDNA. And what these are little tiny scripts, bits and pieces of incomplete DNA. And so they take these little incomplete DNA bits and they put them in a black box with some mystical algorithms, AI, artificial intelligence, ML, machine learning, NGS, next-generation sequencing, heavy computational processing, and they extrapolate and they try to guess whether or not there's a tumor cell. The problem with that fundamentally is it is a guess, and that guess is not very good. It's very erroneous, that extrapolation, for a whole variety of reasons. I mean, some of the leading tests on the market in this space have false positive rates of 56.9%. 57%, at which point you'd be better off just flipping a coin. Like, why take the test?
Welcome to the Brain Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Patrick Porter. Please join us on our mission to better a billion brains. Enjoy the episode and remember to share it with your family and friends.
Welcome back to the Brain Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Patrick Porter, and I have a very special guest. I met him at the Dave Asprey event, Biohacking, where people want to know about themselves, find out through testing what's going on with their physiology and their psychology. And in this case, we're talking about cancer checks in the Cancer Check Labs. And we have with us the CEO, Sumit Rai, and he's going to talk a little bit about, we're going to have a conversation about why is it important to test and why this test is significantly different and better than what's out there in the market. And I was so impressed when I talked to him. I said, we need to get this out to Brain Tap Nation and see if anybody out there, because one of the biggest fears we have is the unknown. You know, we all know somebody. I mean, I can't think of one person that I've talked to that doesn't have some member of their family or friend or coworker, somebody has cancer. And you know, we have these cancer cells in our body all the time, and if our white marker cells are working correctly, then they're killing them off. But if not, and you're going to talk about what you're finding out about that. So, Sumit, welcome to the call.
Thank you, Dr. Porter. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. First, tell us a little bit about how you got into this, because we're talking about taking somebody from fear to peace of mind. Because whether you have it or you don't have it, if you have it, you can now go get it fixed. And then you're going to talk about how once you get it, whatever treatment you have or whatever recovery method you use, you can find out if it's really gone, right? I mean, so tell us a little bit about how you got started to take people from fear to peace of mind.
Sure. So I got into this for very personal reasons. This is really about impact for myself and everyone at the company, and wanting to help people and sort of eradicate and reduce consequences from cancer. I unfortunately lost my only sibling, my younger sister, to cancer 13 years ago. She was diagnosed 15 years ago. She was fairly young. She was 24 when she was diagnosed. She passed away a year and a half later at 25. And that sent me on a mission to look for ways to really move the needle and make an impact in cancer. And one of the primary ways to do that is early detection. You know, survival at stage 0, the earliest stages, is 99%. So we've sought out to find a mechanism by which that could become possible. And the good news is we did. We have developed a test at Cancer Check Labs that can detect stage 0 cancer simply from a blood draw for any solid tumor. And solid tumor means any organ tumor: breast cancer, lung cancer, prostate, colorectal, pancreatic, liver, bladder, stomach, brain, skin, thyroid, adrenal, on and on and on and on. All the organ tumors from which 100 million people a year suffer. And the way that the test works is if you have an underlying primary tumor, one of these tumors, generally speaking, the primary tumor itself, that little bump, is not what actually kills you. What kills you is the tumor sheds tumor cells that circulate through your bloodstream. And those are known as circulating tumor cells, or CTCs, the acronym for short. And the CTCs, the circulating tumor cells, spread that cancer throughout your body in a process known as metastasis, invade your other organs, make them dysfunctional, they shut down, and you die. That's how you die from cancer. Now, all tumors must shed to spread. You cannot go from stage 0 to stage 1, stage 1 to stage 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 without spreading. By definition, that is what stage progression is.
Mhm.
As a result, tumors begin shedding at stage 0 before they hit stage 1. And so those cells are floating around your body. I mean, to put some perspective on that, if you have, let's say, breast cancer, 1 gram of tumor mass, which is really very, very tiny, it's so small you can't even feel it, it's not palpable. In fact, it's so small that generally they will even refuse to biopsy it because they will either miss or they will not get enough tissue to stain it and diagnose it. So 1 gram, which is not palpable, which is not biopsiable, and which is not diagnosable, kicks off up to about 3.2 million CTCs a day into your bloodstream. So there are millions and millions of these cells floating around right when these tumors are in their most nascent stages. In our test at Cancer Check Labs, we have the ability to do a blood draw, send that blood sample to our lab, process it through proprietary technology we developed over the last 15 years, where we spent nearly $100 million, by $80 million, and extract those circulating tumor cells. And what's interesting is when we extract them whole and intact. They're whole cells, such that we can take them physically, and we do. We put them on glass slides, tangibly, we affix them, just like tissue, because as whole cells, it is cellular tissue. We stain it just like tissue, with the same stains that they would use on a surgical tissue biopsy, although we don't require surgical tissue biopsy. And then we hand it to a human pathologist, that's a doctor, a physician that's specially trained to look at cells and tissue to render a result of, is this cancerous or not? And so that's how the test works. There's no black boxes here. There's no guessing games. It is straight tissue. In essence, what you're doing is a whole body tissue biopsy off of a simple blood draw.
That's great. So that was my next question: was how does this work? So someone comes. Do they get it at a clinic, or can they do it on their own? Tell me a little bit about how, if someone's watching this and says, you know what, I'm curious, and I know we're going to give a discount code at the end. We'll probably talk about it. There's a discount code for them. We're going to have all the information about the lab below. If you're watching this, so that you can follow up on that. If you have a family member or friend that's interested, hopefully you'll share this with everyone you know, because what we're saying is you don't have to go get, like my wife. She was a 0. And they cut into her and it screwed her up. I mean, she's had problems ever since then. And they actually said, well, since we're taking that out, let's take out these other things. It's like, what? You know, it's crazy. And we found out it was a 0. And then they said, well, it might not have been anything. You know, so we can stop the cutting and burning and all of that just with the blood draw. So tell us how does if I was somebody who was interested in this, what would I do? What would my next steps be?
So there's 2 primary ways that it's available. One is direct to consumer on our website. Just go to cancerchecklabs.com and you can order the test directly. It is federally regulated. We are federally registered, compliant, and certified. We are actually the only lab in the world that is federally registered, compliant, and certified that offers this test. And then you can buy it in all continental United States except New York. There are 6 states where you need licenses. We have 5 of them thus far: California, New Jersey, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. But in 47, in New York, we're expecting to have, later this summer. We're in the final steps. But apart from New York, it's available in 47 of 48 states directly online. It's also available in Canada.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
The second way is to go to your physician. We are partnering with a lot of different clinics, particularly in functional medicine, longevity, anti-aging. And I think right now there's somewhere between 120 or 150 clinics that are signed up with us where they can offer you the test as well. But if you don't have one of those providers, you can obviously go to the website and buy it directly.
I know we were talking, I don't know if you know, we have 3,000 clinics offering BrainTap. These doctors should be offering this test. Absolutely. And they have it available for them because people are coming in, I'm sure every day they're having somebody coming in that's either fearful of cancer or has cancer. And we have 2 programs that they work with at the clinics that we were talking about before. One is, of course, with BrainTap. If you're going through the clinical care and you're doing some kind of therapy, you might listen to BrainTap at the same time doing one called Coping with Cancer. The other one is once you're done with your recovery, or if you don't want to do any medical intervention, then we have one called Say No to Cancer. And basically, we know that stress has a big influence on this too, in things of that nature. So we're helping them with that. But one of the questions I have, and the next question is, a lot of people do these genetic tests for cancer, and DNA is a big thing right now. It's a big buzzword. Everybody's talking about it, and of course they now know that it's not just your DNA. It's epigenetics, and that's changing every 40 seconds in every cell of your body. So I mean, what are they testing? They're testing yesterday's news. Tell us a little bit about what's the difference between Cancer Check's early cancer detection system and the distinction, and what makes it so important.
Sure. So, there's a whole host of tests that are trying to develop that can detect cancer. And the problem is they really don't work. And the reason they don't work, to get a little bit of the science, is when these cells are released into the bloodstream, typically one of three things is going to occur. A, they're going to go through something known as programmed cell death. They just die. B, they're going to get eaten by your white blood cells, which is kind of like a Pac-Man that comes and crunches on it. And it's going to break into bits and pieces. And C, it's going to go through your capillaries, where the sheer forces that it traverses are just going to break the skull. When any of these events occur, the cell and all of its components, including the component called the genome, which has the DNA, breaks into little strips and scraps, incomplete bits and pieces, tiny little bits and pieces. And what a lot of these tests are trying to do is take a blood sample and rely on those little bits and scraps of DNA, sometimes called ctDNA or sometimes called cfDNA. And what these are little tiny scripts, bits and pieces of incomplete DNA. And so they take these little incomplete DNA bits and they put them in a black box with some mystical algorithms, AI, artificial intelligence, ML, machine learning, NGS, next-generation sequencing, heavy computational processing, and they extrapolate and they try to guess whether or not there's a tumor cell. The problem with that fundamentally is it is a guess, and that guess is not very good. It's very erroneous, that extrapolation, for a whole variety of reasons. I mean, some of the leading tests on the market in this space have false positive rates of 56.9%. 57%, at which point you'd be better off just flipping a coin. Like, why take the test? And the sensitivity, the ability for these tests to actually detect cancer is dismal because they don't have enough signal. They don't have these little bits and scraps. There's just not enough signal there to really detect it. So in some of their data, they were missing 85 to 100% of stage 0 to stage 3 cancer. That's absurd. That is useless for an early cancer detection test. And then you get some of these other tests, you referred to, which look for biomarkers. Do you have genetic risk? And to your earlier point, cancer is a scary thing. Cancer does cause a lot of anxiety. People do have a fear of getting cancer. Angelina Jolie is a great example of that. She took one of those marker tests and she was positive on BRCA1, BRCA2, which are genes that increase your risk of breast cancer. Now, that doesn't mean she has breast cancer. It doesn't even mean she'll ever develop it.
Right.
But, with that fear, women, in this case, she took an extreme intervention and she got a double mastectomy. Now, she did that because, again, cancer is a scary thing. And no one wants stage 3, stage 4 cancer where it can start to likely become terminal. And so she wanted to preempt that. But if you have a test, such as ours, that can and has detected stage 0 breast cancer, as an example, you would never really take such an extreme intervention. You would just screen yourself regularly. And with the programs that you have at BrainTap for Cancer, there's 3 applications for this test, truly. The first application is someone that just wants to know, do I or don't I have cancer? Let me screen. Might be a presumed healthy person, might be someone with concern, might be someone experiencing some symptoms of some sort, with some anxiety. And it might be someone that's perfectly fine, just wants to know for mental peace that I'm okay. And so they don't have that concern. The second type of person that would use this is someone who's gone through cancer treatment on the other side of the fence. And once you're on the other side of the fence, post-cancer treatment, there's 2 things you really think about. One is known as MRD, which is minimum residual disease. Basically, I had cancer. Did they get rid of all of it? Or some of it left? Did we really eradicate it? Is there any minimum residual disease left? If there is, that tumor mass will be shedding these CTCs into your bloodstream. So you can screen for that and check for MRD, minimum residual disease. And the second thing, this is the third application that people look for on this side of the fence, is, well, okay, great, even if you did get all of it, you have a propensity for recurrence. So how do you know it didn't come back? And you need to screen routinely in order to check for that. So the three real applications are, one, getting screened to make sure that you hopefully don't have cancer. And, negatives are valuable too. You want that mental peace because, as you pointed out, stress is a big factor in developing cancer. It affects your immune system, your hormones, your biochemistry, makes it dangerous. And then the second application is, if you had cancer, making sure that it's all gone. You don't have any residual disease. And the third application is, if you had cancer, and even if it is all gone, making sure it didn't come back. It didn't recur.
Yeah. I mean, I think of the medical community. We have a sick care industry, not a healthcare. This is something that's with healthcare. I mean, knowing that you have a problem is far more powerful than guessing if you have a problem, or fearing that you have a problem and not doing anything about it. I use my wife as an example again. She has Addison's disease, so she has poor circulation and adrenal. She has to work on that. So she's getting checked. When she was getting diagnosed, nobody could figure out what was going on, but her feet were turning blue. And it was so funny because the doctor, finally, a doctor looked it up and he said, okay, we got it. There's a diagnosis for blue feet. And she goes, okay, what are we going to do? He says, oh, I don't know. There's nothing they could do, but now he can put it in a diagnosis box. This is something that you can change your lifestyle. You can do some kind of intervention. You can start doing what needs to be done, and you can get that checked up. So a lot of people might think, well, why would I spend that money and I do all that work and then it comes back that I have a positive result but I have no symptoms, and then I go to my doctor and he tells me I have a clear scan. What do you tell people?
So, we are a very sensitive test because we detect at a cellular level, right? Now, traditional diagnostics rely on imaging. Imaging is late. Imaging cannot detect at a cellular level because it simply does not have the resolution. You have billions of cells. You don't have billions of pixels in an image. And so it's literally impossible for an image to do it. So we can, at times, detect it earlier than imaging, and have. I mean, we had a really interesting one just very recently where we had someone who was positive on the test. They did a PET scan. The imaging was negative. 6 months later, they did a PET scan again, and they had 2 lumps in their throat. And, we picked it up earlier. Now, you made a very important comment earlier in this conversation around everyone sort of having tumor cells and our white blood cells going after them. And, I want to elaborate on that a little bit because it'll help people understand what to do with this. Our body, we are living biological organisms. As living biological organisms, we constantly have cellular turnover. Old cells die, new cells are formed. Old cells die, new cells are formed, so on and so forth. This process goes on as long as we're alive. Now, unfortunately, sometimes in making trillions of replications, our body makes mistakes, and it creates these erroneous, mutated, precancerous cells. Fortunately, our immune system, specifically our white blood cells, as you pointed out, our macrophages, recognize them and destroy them. And that's why everyone in the world is not dead from cancer yet, literally. Now, unfortunately, once in a while, that erroneous precancerous replicated cell either evades the immune system, or the immune system is compromised and it fails to kill it, at which point it has a chance to multiply and grow. And that's when a tumor is born. And once that tumor is born, that's essentially an alien civilization living inside your body. This kind of mutated, literally, cell. And it's just growing and multiplying its little babies, which is in the tumor, all these cells. And then it sends out its soldiers, its Vikings, to sea. And that sea is your bloodstream. And those Vikings are tasked with finding more territory to take over, to raid, pillage, and plunder. And they do. They look for more land, and that land are your other organs. And when they go there and they establish camp and they take over and they seed there and they start multiplying, those are what are secondary and tertiary metastases. Those are other tumors in the body. Now, if you have this understanding and you understand that these cells start to form early on, and you understand that the immune system actually has the ability to destroy these cells, then if you catch it very early, you want to intervene in such a way that you boost your immune system and you inhibit the replication and progression of these cells. And so there are many protocols for that are being developed. There are many in functional medicine. There are many in naturopathic, homeopathic. There are combinatorial. There are obviously traditional protocols, but those unfortunately tend to be more reactive, and late, once it's a little far
Yeah,
gone.
they tell you go home and get worse, and then we'll see you when when we have something we can do surgery on or some intervention that we have a diagnosis for. It's terrible.
And we've seen it happen. We've had people that were positive, went for a scan, and had a node on their prostate, and their doctor told them, well, I see it, but come back in a year when it gets bigger, then we'll take it out. And the person's sitting there going, what do you mean? And so they're looking at it on the image, they have a positive screen, and so you need some of these other protocols. I mean, medicine truly does have to catch up, because today there's two factions in medicine. There's traditional medicine, which is allopathic, and that's what we all think of as primary care and regular medicine, and it's highly reactive. Give me a disease, a condition, a symptom, and make sure it's bad enough that I can treat it. And then you have this sort of other faction which has been rising, like functional medicine, anti-aging, longevity, preemptive, integrative, and I think there's a big growth here. I mean, there's 40,000 functional medicine practitioners just in the United States today. And that's grown in the last 15 years, and it continues to grow very rapidly because it's important. You want to prevent these things. You want to catch them early. You want to be ahead of them. That's how you win.
Right. Yeah, and I think people don't understand that the body keeps score. So it's telling you something about your lifestyle needs to change. Something, maybe it's about the food you're eating, maybe it's about your activity level, maybe it's about your thoughts. Whatever it is, you start, but why don't you change them all? And there's no better time than now. But that fear, that stress, people don't understand that fear will suppress the immune system.
Totally.
And that fear, when it suppresses the immune system, actually your soldiers are basically stuck in their stall. They can't get out because they're there. So tell us a little bit about how Cancer Check test helps erase that fear. I know you kind of talked about it a little bit, but maybe elaborate on that a little bit more so people really understand that.
So knowledge is power in this context. First of all, whether it's positive or negative, you want to know. Negatives are great. Everyone wants a negative. Negative gives you peace of mind, and peace of mind reduces your stress levels, which reduces your cortisol levels, which makes your immune system function better. And so you want to know that you don't have cancer if you don't have cancer. You don't want a lingering anxiety. You don't want mental anguish. You don't want that concern psychologically. It's a problem. So you need to test to have that certainty and that comfort and that confidence that you're doing well and you're okay. Now, if you have a positive, you also want to know, because the sooner you know, the more confidence you have and the more hope you have for resolving it. Knowing earlier gives you more time, gives you more options, and gives you the ability to intervene at a stage where you can resolve it.
You said it was like 99%?
At stage zero, survival.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, I take those odds in Vegas every day. Those are really good odds. So if you know, you can go do something about it. Whatever you do, whether you want to do allopathy or you want to do natural methods, but now you have a way. And the nice thing is, you know if it's working, right? I mean, one thing is we go to the medical doctor. The reason they call it practicing medicine is they're freaking practicing. It's not. They don't know if it's going to work for you or not. And that's why I tell people we have a sick care industry, we have a healthcare industry. And I think you're part of the healthcare industry because we need to know. Just like people got their Apple Watches.
Yeah.
And they measure their heart rate variability, they measure their sleep, they count calories, they weigh themselves on a scale. You brought something to the table that helps them to monitor something that is a mystery for most people. I mean, most people are out there they think it's this boogeyman that they hear, hey, 1 out of 4 people. Now they're saying maybe 1 out of every 2 people or something. It's getting crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And with what happened with, I know so many people that unfortunately they took the vaccine and their cancer came back with a vengeance. And it's because they said that this vaccine actually basically put blindfolds on their immune system so they couldn't even see the cells that you destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, look, cancer is a scary thing again. It's very prevalent, and it's starting to become the number 1 cause of mortality. It's overtaking heart disease. It already has in several high-income developed countries. The Lancet published that data in 2019. And so today, to your point, 40% of the population will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. That's a staggering number. It actually just went up from 39.5 to 40.5 per the National Cancer Institute. That reflects about half of men and a third of women. I mean, those are huge, huge numbers. And if you think about the impact that this could have, if you look at, last year alone, there were 10 million recorded deaths in cancer. There are obviously more unrecorded. But even at just 10 million a year, without even considering population growth or the incidence rising in the general population, 10 million recorded deaths a year in 100 years, 100 times 10 million, is 1 billion lives lost. We are talking about double-digit percentages of global population. There are not many things on the planet that actively threaten double-digit percentages of global population. I mean, to put that in perspective, 1 billion lives in 100 years, if you were to add up all casualties and all fatalities in all known wars in human history, the total is 350 million. It's a third of that.
Wow.
I mean, cancer is a massive threat. And if you have the ability, like we can at Cancer Check Labs, to detect cancer at stage 0, where survival is 99%, with those odds, you will practically eradicate mortality over time. And so that's why the impact is so enormous, and that's why screening and taking the test is so important.
Yeah. So we're here to better a billion brains, and of course, if you have cancer, you're going to be worrying, stressed out, anxious, whatever. You can go to cancerchecklabs.com. The link's going to be below, and you've gracefully gave us a coupon code that's BT500. That's going to give them $500 off that test. So I'm going to encourage you, if you're listening this far, to go check out the website. Hopefully you're motivated. If you have any fear at all, I'd say put your fear to rest, because either way, what we learned here was if you have it, maybe it's at a 0 stage, now you can do something about it. You can get tested another 6 months, like you said, and see if whatever your therapy is doing is working. If you don't have it, then hey, great. Maybe next year you do another test. Whatever, don't let that fear will precipitate illness, not just in cancer, because it shows up first as other things too, like depression, anxiety. These all drive cancer. The dysfunction of the nervous system and the regulatory system. So, you have an opportunity here. And when I found out about it, I was blown away. I mean, and one of the things I know is that, like at the biohacking events, usually if it's there, it's cutting edge, because these are people that are spending their own money, their own time, their energy, their life, and they're checking everything. They're making sure, because they want to know, hey, is this piece of bread going to make me, overweight, or is it going to drain my energy? Is it going to give me energy? So this is a test that, if you're listening this far, I'm going to encourage you to go to cancerchecklabs.com. Check it out. Remember the coupon code BT500. We'll have it in the notes below. We'll have other links too, because they can follow you on social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and find stories and maybe some new breakthroughs you have and things like that. And I'm sure that you have recommendations of some of those functional medicine doctors that you're working with. And I'm going to encourage all the BrainTap offices. If you're watching this, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to Sumit and get on their team. It doesn't, they can just start offering it, right? They become some kind of affiliate with you, and then they start offering the test, and they can work from their office and help out their patients, or even just give them the link. Even if you just shared this as a resource, I would love to have. We'll share this with our doctors. Obviously, we're going to do that on this call, but we're doing our doctor summit here in the end of July. We have 300 doctors coming in, and you should get me some flyers, and I'll put them in their bags, and and I'll talk a little bit about it, because this is something that we're always talking about. Test, don't guess. It's so important to test. So is there anything today that I forgot to ask you about that you feel like I need to tell you, or anything you want to reinforce that you've talked about? Because you covered a lot of ground here, but anything
I think we covered it all. I think fundamentally you said it, test, don't guess. And you got to get screened. We understand how scary cancer is. We understand what a large problem it is. And there is now a test here at Cancer Check Labs that can help allay those concerns and fears and anxieties and give you knowledge, which is powerful. And so get screened.
Okay. All right, well, you're listening to the Brain Fitness Podcast. We talked about prevention right now. We're talking about, because if you don't know, what you don't know is like an airline pilot. They say what the real trouble with flying an airplane isn't what you know. It's what you don't know when you're flying the airplane. In fact, when they were flying airplanes, they were crashing all the time. They said, this thing's never going to work. And then somebody came up with a checklist. And then they started flying appropriately, because even the small little things people didn't know. So when you think about cancer check labs and checklist, just the little things. This is something you can do. It can be part of your yearly checkup. I mean, it should be part of everybody's yearly checkup. I mean, every doctor should be, this is part of your yearly checkup. And insurance companies should be paying for it because they'd save so much money. But unfortunately, there's a money game there going on. It's insidious. It's terrible. In fact, the more we pay, the more the insurance company makes. It's terrible. It's like we become a cash cow for them when we get these illnesses. So we have to take control, guys, who are listening. We have to take control of our own health, take back our power to be healthy, to make our choices. Uncertainty is the cause of many disorders. So let's get certain about what's going on. And, I appreciate you lasting this far. We're on a mission to better a billion brains. If you've listened this far, then it's your brain we're talking about. So get over to cancerchecklabs.com. Review what you need to review. Check them out on social media. We're going to have all the links below and see what's going on. They're working with right now 150 different clinics. Hopefully, by the time we're done, there'll be over 3,000 clinics doing it. And we'll get the people, because like you said, 1 billion people could be saved. I mean, think about it. 10 million people died last year. And if they had found out at 0, that would have only been like a small number. I don't even know what that'd be. That'd be like 500 people, something like that. So, I mean, it's a very small percentage of the people, so let's get checked out. Let's figure out what's going on. Use the resources that are out there. Today, science is advancing faster than our medical community will allow it, because they have all these protocols, and there's unfortunately big bucks behind the system. It's a racket. It's not just they're not. Everybody thinks the doctors care about their health, which they might, but some of them, the ones that are running it now, doctors don't even get to control the show anymore. It's the insurance companies that control the show. So, but this is something you can control. You can go to there. You said anybody can go to the website and order the test. You send it off to your lab. They do the screening. They'll get you back your results, whether they're positive or negative. You're going to get those results. You're going to be able to take action on those steps, and then go from there. So I want to applaud you for putting this together and spending $80 million of putting it together. Most people would have gave up at about $1 million, so or even less. That's a big move. So congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Porter. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thanks, listeners. And again, this has been an episode of the Brain Fitness Podcast. Please stay tuned for other tips and tricks and things you can do to enhance your life and your experience, either through testing, through discovery, through technology, or just basically just start using your brain. Let's get going, because we have control of our health as long as we start taking positive steps forward. Knowing where you're at right now is a key to that. So again, Dr. Patrick Porter for Brain Fitness Podcast and Summit. Thanks for being on the call.
Thank you for joining us on our mission to better a billion brains. Follow at Dr. Patrick Porter on social media for updates, and remember to practice brain fitness every day.